Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi. This is going to be another Raid Shadow Legends video, and I got a pretty cool video for you guys. I built a clan boss team using some of these Sylvan champions. It's a unique team because we're relying on two champions I've recently covered in Spotlight videos, so make sure to check those out if that's something you're interested in, utilizing these champions. But I'm talking about Elva Autumnborn and Ruella. I think these are really cool champions with a lot of utility in this game, not just for clan boss. In fact, they're probably not best for this part of the game, but they can be really good. And so I wanted to build a clan boss team that could utilize it. I mean, Ruella has a 30% or a 20% turn meter boost on a 3-turn cooldown with a crit rate buff. I'm like, this should be great. And so I decided to figure out a way to utilize her. She brings decreased defense and weaken as well. That means I don't really need anybody else to bring debuffs, just damage. So she's kind of got a cool utility type kit on top of the fact that she has triple hits and does some solid damage anyway. And then Elva's amazing, right? She's got increased speed, she's got passive healing, she's got this block debuff ability as well as a cleanse, all in the same skill with that increased speed buff. So there's a lot of, I mean, I just kind of figured she's got to be really good for clan boss too. And actually, she's better than I thought she'd be. So I'm really excited to be able to show this one to you. So we're going to go ahead, we'll look at the champions. Obviously, we'll break down the numbers at the end of the video and go into the clan boss run right in the middle here. So I don't know, sit back, enjoy, let's jump in. I really appreciate you coming by to watch this video, and if you enjoy it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below, the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. And of course, if you enjoyed today's music, we have that Soundstripe link down below in the pinned comment description of this video, along with my code Deadwood Jedi to save yourself 15%. And of course, if you're looking for account work, you can find that on my website, deadwoodjedi.com. All right, this is the team that I'm bringing in. So like I said, I have Elva Autumnborn in here. We've got Ruella. We've got Dracomorph's going to be our DPS. We also have Demytha in here, obviously, and Seeker. Now, anytime you have a Seeker team, Seeker's pretty important. In fact, most of these champions are pretty much locked in. You can't really do the Ruella build without Elva. They kind of work really well together for this particular team to utilize their skills to the max. And so that's kind of what, you know, I would recommend is like, I'm sure there's some substitutions we can find, but I don't know what those are exactly. And so you're going to want to stick with this team if you decide to build it. And obviously I will try to have this on the website for you guys as well. Now the key to it is Elva is going to give us an increased speed buff, right? So she gives us an increased speed buff. She also brings us a block debuff skill. And so with those two things, this is going to be a completely affinity friendly squad, which is always really nice. Now, the interesting thing is she actually does pretty decent damage. Now I have her built, as you can see, with pretty high damage numbers, right? 3,600 attack, 220 crit damage. And so it's definitely, you know, building her for that kind of purpose. But I was surprised actually at the type of damage she was able to do. Now, if we move on, you can see Ruella here. I've got her very fast, 294. So the speeds are not like the easiest speeds to get by any means, but she is going on a 3-1 ratio. And the reason why is she's going to be using this timed offensive skill. This one that gives a turn meter boost to all the allies of 20% and an increased crit rate buff. Now, the advantage of using someone like Ruella is that crit rate buff. It means that everybody is going to only need to have 70% crit rate throughout the course of the fight, because we're going to be extending this continually. This means you never have to build anybody with more than 70% crit rate because of the timing of the skills, which is pretty awesome. Now, the other great part about Ruella is her A2 ability, which lands a decreased defense and a weakened debuff. Now, this is not 100% guaranteed to land, but because of the chance to land this, it's a really high chance, right? So basically, it's a 70% chance to land both of those debuffs on each of these 3 hits. So it's pretty much going to land all the time. It's kind of like having a Vizier not extending ever. It's a pretty rare event when that happens. Now, it is on a 4-turn cooldown, so you really don't want to miss that debuff if you have the opportunity. That'll definitely impact the damage that we do, but generally this is going to be up 100% of the time as well. She has triple hitters on all of her skills, which means we can use Giant Slayer on her, which is absolutely phenomenal. So that's kind of the utility of Ruella, is one of the reasons why we want to bring her in here. Increased crit rate for everybody, bringing a bunch of debuffs that we really love for everybody too. Really solid champion for this. Now, obviously, we've got a Dracomorph in here just to deal the damage for us, right? That's, a no-brainer. Really slow speed because we are utilizing the aura from Elva, and we can bring any DPS into that slot. We can even bring a ninja into the slot at the very same speed without having to really prioritize any skills over any others. We have Demytha obviously going very fast as well, 295. And she doesn't have many attack skills, but I did build her up, so she'll hit decently hard, I guess, when she strikes. Not really a big deal. One of the best parts about her, though, is she can also extend the duration of ally buffs. This is actually massive for us. Because of Ruella's crit rate buff is only a 2-turn duration, with the extension from the Demytha, this is actually going to stay on everybody for the entirety of the fight. And that's kind of the key. Now, it also works in really good conjunction with Elva's block debuff skill. So because we do have the manual just a little bit at the start, we're going to be affinity friendly because we're extending that block debuff ability. So we don't even need the cleanse from Elva's A2 skill, which is pretty cool. And then very last, of course, we have Seeker giving us a turn meter boost, right? And that's pretty much the team. Okay, as we jump in here, I'm going to let it I have it set up to run full auto, almost. I have to stop it after this first attack. Just briefly, because we do need to have one extra A1 from Elva in this team. That's the only thing. So Demytha is going to go right here, and then Elva is going to be able to A1, and at this point, I can click auto, and it's going to go full bore. I don't have to touch anything or do anything different, and it's going to run perfectly for us. We're going to obviously get a lot of damage from Draco, because we're going to keep debuffs on this clan boss for the full fight. And you're going to notice that crit rate buff that we get from Ruella is going to stay on everybody. We're going to have that increased attack that's going to stay on everybody. It means that all the damage we're doing is going to be as maxed out as humanly possible. So you can really build these champions with a lot of crit damage, a lot of attack. Now, I am on a test server. I want to be clear about that, which means I can use all the gear I have, right? So I don't have to be, judicious. I can really build these folks out to the maximum. But when we look at the stats at the end, you're going to see the attack numbers on champions like Seeker, champions like Draco are considerably higher than they would normally be because I don't need to get 100% crit rate. I can instead focus those stats on other areas of the game, whether that's speed, or whether that's accuracy, or that's just straight attack. Any of those things will help because as long as I'm lowering the requirements for one area, that means I can push them into something else, right? If I get extra accuracy in the gear, then that means I don't need an accuracy banner. I can put attack there, and that'll bump those numbers up. If I can get extra speed in the gear, that means I don't need speed boots necessarily. I can put attack boots on, and we can get damage boosts there as well. So there's a lot of ways to actually bump these numbers up. Now, if we look at the numbers here, right, there's one thing about Ruella. I don't think her base attack is that low, but I have had a heck of a time trying to build her attack up. Now, part of that is Sylvan faction, right? We don't have faction guardians filled out. That's good, 300 or 400 attack that we're just not going to be able to have on our champions here. Another part is we don't have very great accessories, so that's probably another a couple hundred attack that I can't put on these champions. So definitely the numbers that you're going to be seeing from Elva, from Ruella, those are numbers that will definitely be going up over time as you build out your faction guardians, as you farm Spider and get better accessories for them. So these are kind of like, I would say, like kind of bottom line numbers. And you can see Ruella is doing about 30 to 35,000 damage per attack off that A1. She's going to be doing similar numbers, maybe a little bit higher with the A2. But it's not going to be crazy numbers, right? But that's still about 100,000 damage or a little bit more than that, right? So we're still getting decent numbers from her. And for somebody that's really bringing a lot of debuffs for us, in this case, decreased defense and weaken, as well as giving us that crit rate buff, that's a really nice thing. Now you can see we did about 150k with that A2, 50k plus on each of those hits, 150, 160,000 damage. That's a pretty decent number. And then you have Elva, who also does pretty solid damage, right? Obviously, getting that block buffed out, getting our speed up is massive. But if you watch her skills, she's actually hitting for about 100,000 or more on every single one of her hits, which is pretty good. I mean, if you basically figure that she's filling the Eris slot in a Myth Air team, where Eris is doing, maybe 50,000 damage or so, we're getting a lot more out of Elva on this team, which is pretty impressive. So her utility is actually pretty sizable here. Definitely a good champion and somebody that's, I think, better suited for clan boss than I thought. I didn't think she would be able to do any damage at all, but she can. She's not gonna break any records, but for somebody that's there mainly to keep us speed up, it's It's a pretty good result that we're getting out of her, right? And then, of course, you know, Draco's able to do crazy amounts of damage. Seeker's able to do crazy amounts of damage because we don't have to build all that crit rate up, which is pretty awesome, right? Seeker pulling 150k there with that A1. Gotta love that, right? So it's a very solid team, very good. You know, we're able to get, basically, we're having 2 champions that would be more utility slots, right, for us, right? So like basically like the Deacon in a Myth Air team is going to be Ruella, and the Heiress in a Myth Air team is going to be Elva. That's a pretty awesome little change of pace right there, right? We're adding 2 damage dealers in place of 2 non-damage dealers, and that just is going to up our numbers all the way across the board, or they should, right? The numbers I think we're putting up are not crazy different from what I would typically put up with a Myth Air team, or a Myth Food team, I should say. It's definitely more than I would do with the Myth Air team, but not necessarily what I would do with the Myth Food team. But you can see there's definitely some damage potential with this type of a squad, and these 2 champions are pretty cool. So anyway, I'll let you guys, we'll jump to the end. I'll let you watch the rest of it, listen to some fun music, and then we'll chat about it at the end. Right, 113 million, not too shabby, I would say. It's a pretty darn good result, right? We got almost 18 million from Ruella, almost 14 million from Elva. These 2 champions are pretty decent, right? In comparison, Seeker did 19 and a half. So like, they're not superstar damage dealers, but they're not bad at all. Seeker is a pretty significant damage dealer for a lot of these teams. The fact that Ruella is fairly close to being on par is pretty significant. Elva too, not too bad, I would say. Now, both of them are on 3-turn ratios, but they also have 1 non-damage skill, right? So they're getting basically the same amount of attacks as Seeker is. So they're doing pretty decently, I would say. Of course, Draco's, you know, crushing with 54 million, which is awesome, because if you have a really significant damage dealer, being able to drop the crit rate by 30% is a massive boost to their ability. So you can see how this could be a really positive kind of build and team for you, depending on what you have on your account. Now, obviously, these are new champions, so not everybody has them, but just keep in mind that there are going to be some possibilities of using these champions for your teams. Now, if you run a typical Myth Air team or any kind of, you know, Heiress style team, Elva is a direct substitution, and a really good one, right? Obviously can do good damage, as we've seen. Also will be able to cleanse. Also will be able to give you that speed buff. So she can be a direct replacement for Heiress in any of your clan boss teams. Is she going to be an improvement? That depends on the team you run, because I really like the Toxic on Heiress. I think that's actually really positive and can be more effective than maybe what Elva would be bringing for your team, but you can always put Elva in Toxic too. So There's definitely some ways to, manipulate your teams to get the best out of it. But if you want to use Ruella, this is a solid squad, and that crit rate buff is massive. Oh, by the way, yeah, I was able to do this with a ninja. You can see the results right up here. It's definitely, he's an awesome champion to be able to bring in, right? So, I should say over wherever I have that up. He's awesome. Ninja's great, and he does about the same amount of damage as Draco did. I built them obviously a little bit differently, so maybe that has something to do with it. But you can do this with either one. I've been able to run it and get really good results. Okay, let's take a brief moment and look at the champions so we can get an idea of, how I built them out. I've showed the stats earlier, so I'm not going to dwell on this. There's nothing crazy going on in either the masteries of any of these champions or on the sets that I'm using. I'm basically using the same kind of sets, right? Speed sets, cruel sets, perception sets, crit damage sets, stuff that's just going to boost the damage numbers or the speed, essentially. So nothing really fancy going on there. But we have Elva, 244 speed. These are all kind of the minimum speeds too. I really kind of hit it as low as I could go. But 244 speed, 3700 attack, 223 crit damage. Obviously built to do damage. Maybe not realistic to be able to put up those 100,000 hits with your team with her, but you know that she's capable of it at the very least. Ruella, we had at 294 speed, and does need to be one speed slower than Demytha. It's important to have those speed ratios set just so, right? She's also, decent accuracy at 239. Probably could bump that up a little bit, but that's fine. Only 3,800 attack. Like I said, it is actually really hard to build her with high attack. I'm not 100% sure why. I don't think her base attack is that low, but I think the Guardian part of it has a lot to do with it. And so just kind of keep that part in mind. What else do we have? 261 crit damage, so I definitely got good crit damage on her. 77% crit rate, and you'll see that across the board. Everybody, under 80% crit rate or so as I try to get them. We have that buff the full fight, so we don't need to build at 100%. We got Dracomorph. Dracomorph's a beast. 155 speed. Because of the speed aura with Elva, we can actually have him really slow, which is great for putting up damage numbers. 6,700 attack, 297 crit damage, 241 accuracy. These are the numbers I really like to see. Obviously not always practical to get that kind of numbers, but he was putting up 300, 400,000 hits. That's pretty nice, right? We also have Demytha, absolute beast of a champion, right? Makes this kind of team work. 295 speed, just a little bit faster than Ruella, which is always important. 217 crit damage is great. Almost 3,000 attack, which is actually really high for her. I was actually able to build her pretty damage heavy. This is not something I can always do. Like on my personal account, if I were to build a team like this, I probably wouldn't even bother. I just want to get to the speed with the worst gear possible on my account because she doesn't bring a whole lot else to the table as far as damage goes. But obviously, pretty solid there. She did put up 7 million damage. And then, of course, we have Seeker, who is the one that boosts our speed, gives us that increased attack buff, which is one of the reasons why he's such a good champion for this. Now, we got him at 5,100 attack, and with his low base attack, that's actually a really good number to be able to get to. I was surprised I was able to get that high. Faction Guardians really has opened up a lot as far as like the final numbers we're able to hit here. 227 crit damage is great, 72 crit rate, and like I said, 188 speed is kind of where we're aiming for with that. And it worked out really nicely with him, right? Put up almost 20 million damage. Definitely a solid damage dealer for this type of a team. And overall, I thought we got really good results. And of course, I know you want to see how I built my ninja. I have him right here, 6,800 attack. I've got him, again, 155 speed, 289 crit damage, 270 accuracy. This guy obviously slaps really hard. It was interesting that his team didn't really do any more damage than the Draco team did. They did pretty much the same amount. And so he's obviously an amazing champion, right? And one of the best for clan boss damage-wise. For some reason, I just didn't exceed what my expectations were. So that's the team. I thought it was a pretty cool result, pretty fun run to be able to do, and overall just kind of an awesome team, right? It's just kind of cool to build something a little bit different, a little bit new, utilizing these new champions. Now, would I build this team for myself? Probably not, right? If I'm going to have to manual a team, I don't want to manual a team that's going to be doing a 20-minute run. I'd prefer to have something a little faster like the you know, like the Hellcat teams that I run right now. Unfortunately, it's not really going to be full auto. It just doesn't work that well that way. If I wanted to run it full auto, which I think you can do, but it gets a little bit more problematic as far as timing the buffs and the debuffs, and it's just not something I would really recommend being able to do. I think this is the best setup right here, and you're also able to keep that crit rate buff up the whole time, because otherwise, why bring in Ruella when it really comes down to it? It's not going to be the highest damage dealing team out there, but it's just new. It's different, and I think that's kind of fun to be able to do. So that's all we got for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one of these kind of videos, right? They're pretty fun to be able to do something a little bit different, hasn't been shown before. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.